This is episode 291 of the Gold Squadron podcast. I'm your host, Dion Morales, and today I'm joined by Marcel. Preparing for the podcast last week, met my quota for the year. Good thing he got it in just in time. Manzano.
Not just in time. I had like 2 weeks to go. Plenty of time.
Will, happy Life Day. Hayquit.
How's it going?
Ryan, I'm free until I'm called upon. Staniszewski.
Yes, even though when you have extra time off that you can use at the end of the year, being a lead of your team means you're still on call.
This is true. I'm on maternity leave, or paternity leave, sorry, wrong word. Paternity leave right now, but at the same time, starting tomorrow is this big orchestra band convention in Chicago, and I have to go for like 2 panels because of my school, even though, like, it's whatever. It's cool. I mean, I want to go anyway. They're playing some of my music. That's fun. I'll wear a fancy tie and everything. It'll be great.
What is it like, Dion, when you go to someplace else and they play your music as the enjoyer viewer?
So I will tell you, I have had that. I have not had that experience yet in person. I've seen a couple recordings, which made me go, "Oh my goodness, this is the premiere of a piece." Of one of my arrangements, and the first time I'll be like there for one. Then that's going to be tomorrow's Tuesday, right? That's tomorrow. Super excited about it. I got to make sure I don't stay up too late today doing construction. But yeah, super excited about it. I have a lot of musical works in the queue right now. Actually, I released a new one today. I'll talk about that later time. But yeah, it's good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Let's start with announcements and news. Will, I believe we have an update for the title dogfights. And we're going to get that announcement from Will now so that we can hear him.
Yes, of course. Hearing me is good. Because I need to talk about our new supreme leader of the First Order, Christopher "Crispy" Patrick. That's right. From coming off of the Galactic Championship Series, still the year Crispy, so able to get in there, and because we were counting not just wins on our Wednesday streams, but we were counting all qualifying wins. If you played on stream, we would count your win for our title holders. So, Crispy was in the running for that. He had qualified through our Galactic qualifiers, beating I think 2 of them. Right, he's a 2-time qualifying winner. Mm-hmm. So he was able. He took some time off, came on Wednesday, and was able to take that title. We still got 2 more qualifiers, Sandy and Tad, going for a second chance at the title. So they're planning to face off, and we'll be crowning then our 4th. Remember, we're going to get 7 different titles. The first player to win the title, they get to choose faction. We got Psych J7, the Jedi Master right now, and Sevwall holding down the Emperor's hand. So we got just 4 more in the running. But of course, check out on Wednesdays is normally where we get those qualifying matches when we stream on those days.
Beautiful. So here is the plan with Sector Series coming up, which we have a lot to talk about with that. Those are going to start overlapping because we'll have Sector Series games that qualify for these title dogfights. So you'll hear us kind of talking about them. It's just the difference is that the title dogfights are kind of a continuing thing that continues rolling, and Sector Series is a specific set of time. A reminder, coming up in a few weeks, we have the Las Vegas Open. It's going to be a great time. Looking forward to seeing everybody there. As for Sector Series, it is open. Our league-style championship series is officially up and running. You can get registered now. And what I wanted to do, I wanted to start by showing you the website, how to get registered and everything like that. And if you're listening, I will paint you a picture with my words. Don't you worry, friend. So, Sector Series, if you go to goldsquadronpodcast.com, you cannot miss it. It's the first little section right there in the website. You click on Sector Series, and that will take you to this page. You have all the different things you need. We have a rules document set to go. The results page is the only last thing under the construction, and actually Brian from Roll Better actually created a couple of tools that we're going to be implementing there. As for prizes, as a reminder, we're doing it's completely free to participate in Sector Series. You just need to know how to play on TTS. These are our set-aside prizes. We're going to have sector winners, cards being made up to match the ships or the pilots of the winners, just like we did for the Galactic Championships. And the top 16 are going to get plastic versions of those, and we're going to be making paper versions of those as well to kind of pass out. And, of course, for the first time, we're going to be making some digital swag as well for people to be able to play with and just have as part of their TTS assets. Top 8 will get some Sector Series-themed tournament boxes. Top 4, Sector Series flight jackets, and our champion will be going home with that beautiful Sector Series trophy. Gonna be so nice. Absolutely love it. And when you register, you basically have to choose a sector. There are 4 different sectors. They're 4-hour windows here. You have UTC 0 to 4, UTC 6 to 10, UTC 12 to 16, and then 18 to 22. And it's very simple. You just click on whichever one you need, and you will go ahead and see what you need. Now, I know some people don't know how to use UTC. You're like, I don't understand. Can you dumb it down for me? And I'll say, don't worry. We made a chart right here, very simple. Approximately where do you live? I did a lot of the major cities, and I've translated it to your local time so you can check it out. As for who's currently signed up right now, Sector 1, I believe, is the one that has the most people in it. And I think the reason is because that's the majority kind of evening time for the United States. And right now we have 40 people signed up for that one. Sector 2 is the smallest right now with only 2 people in there. Sector 3 has currently 12, and there's 45. Oh, sorry. Sector 4 has 45 players right now. So it looks like right now we have a total of, what was that? Like about 90, almost 90 right now.
Yep.
People signed up.
Sector 4 would be Europe.
Sector 4 is
would be like primarily European time zone.
It's right. It's right here. So if you're looking at it's mornings in the United States-ish, mornings, late afternoons. But yeah, it's evenings in Europe.
All right. What's
as a route,
because that is terrible.
Say it again.
Sorry, I know what I was going to say, but just what's Sector 2? Because you said 2 people on there, like.
Yep. So, well, when it comes to the sectors, that's one of the things on our. I had a plan for this. So, in the event that we have less than, let me just go check the rules, because I don't have to guess. I could just go to the rule packet and look for fine I put it on here. I know I did. I set a number. It's somewhere in here. I'll have to double check. But essentially, if they don't hit the cap for structure, right here, restructuring. In the event that less than 6 players sign up for a sector, the following will occur. So 6 players is enough to play the event, which would give you a round robin setup with 5 rounds. That's the absolute minimum, and I would run it with 6. But if there's less than that, what ends up happening is I'll take one of the bigger ones and I'll chop it in half and rename it as Sector 2, but give it the original time, and we go from there just to be able to actually have 4 sectors, because we want.
What time is Sector 2?
Sector 2 in Chicago is midnight to 4 a.m.
Oh, good lord.
He's thought about jumping in on that sector.
I might do it. I mean,
Hey,
you gotta,
might need to.
It counts Friday, right? Like you can play Friday night.
Sure.
Yeah, you just.
I mean, that's
The thing is that the expectation is that you have flexibility within those hours, right?
Yeah, I got flexibility between midnight on Friday night or 12:30 on Friday night.
Might be a little tough. I think Sector 1 might be the call for you, my friend. But hey, whatever floats your boat. Whatever floats your boat.
sure. I just wanted to chime in that if you haven't inferred what we were saying, remember the sector is when you want to play as an
Correct.
approximation. Most people, it's their evenings or after work or whatnot, but not necessarily. Worms does ask, why the 2-hour gaps? Just to make it a little bit easier.
To make it easier, because what I wanted to do was, originally I had it a 6-hour window. The problem with that is I wanted to actually have a difference between the person who wants to play at 11:59 and the person who wants to play at 2 a.m. Right? Like those are two different people, and by like making those gaps, there's just less likely of somebody wanting to, like somebody in the same sector being, oh, I can only play at the beginning of the time and I can only play at the end of the time. I'm shortening that window in which they can play to make it more feasible for people to actually schedule games.
Sure, and obviously you can make exceptions with your opponent if
Sure,
if need
yeah,
be.
it's one of those things where the it's not unreasonable to be like, hey, do you have another time? But the the expectation is that you should be available in that window at some point.
Exactly.
During the time. Yeah, it's not like you have to play, or if your game goes over on time, like it's not. It's just organization so that somebody who like, let's say they have kids and like, listen, I have this hour and a half, 2-hour gap in the evening that I can play, but then I got to get to bed or put my kids to bed or something like that. Just trying to give people predictability. That's a great question though. Absolutely great question. But yeah, everything you need, and if you need an online time zone converter, we have one of those. But very simple, 1 game a week, standard. It's free, flexible lists, and this is going to end up going into our topic for today, which is building for scenario. The scenarios are going to be selected each week. You are allowed to change your list each week. So that means that if you want to, you can make adjustments to your list. You can play a completely different list based on whatever scenario gets drawn up for that week. It will be the same scenario for all sectors for that week. So we have that. And then additionally, I wanted to talk about the top 16 because it's more kind of like top 16. There's quotes here, potentially. So the way we're doing it is in your sector, you take the top 4, and any player who has the same score, event score, as the 4th player also gets in. So what this does is I've never been a fan of score breaker with strength of schedule and making a specific number cuts, which is why for a long time we were doing graduated cuts. But wording it in this way gives me flexibility with the different sizes of groups and the everybody basically playing the same number of rounds, which will end up being 5. So if you end up with somebody who's undefeated, 2 people that have 1 loss, and then you have players 4, 5, and 6 all have the same score, all 6 of those players end up in the top cut. Does that make sense? Marcel says no. William says yes. Ryan, you're my you're the rubber match. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Am I translating that right?
I think so. I'm using 2 parts of my brain right now. One to listen and one to do the homework. Of my part in this episode.
Nah, you're good. You're good.
I was using 0 part of my brain, to be fair. I was on my phone.
Fair. Fair. So, but yeah. So if you have the same event score, then you end up making the cut. And the reason why this matters as well is in our sector series, draws are draws. They're not roll-offs. Okay. So if your game ends in a draw, you get that single event point, right, for both players, and that gives more differentiation later, because I have a feeling that draws, when it comes to like Worlds, hint hint, are still going to be a thing, most likely. It's a good chance. So it's an adjustment to get used to it, or to reuse the structure that is currently in existence right now, and also reward players for getting to that draw and not punishing the player for losing a roll off when having fought that entire game and getting a tie score. So trying to both, by having the adjusted top four and draws be implemented, as trying to balance out some of the what people call unfairness of what a like only 4 people make the cut or graduated cuts with roll-offs end up creating. So trying to find that middle ground. Will we do it? Who knows? Or will it be successful? We'll find out. We got to actually play it through it. As for when does everything start? Kicks off the week of January 16th. And again, remember, it's completely free. You just have to click on the sector you want. It opens up the page. You go ahead. On the top of the page, you click sign up for Roll Better, and you join the tournament. It's that easy. Okay, let's go ahead and jump in to our topic for the day. How to build on scenario. Here is the goal for today. What we want to do, we want to make sure that for each scenario, we're going to just give you a reminder of what each scenario is, because I know sometimes people don't remember the fancy names. We'll use their fancy name, as well as giving you the synopsis of what the point is, and then just kind of I want to talk about what are the tools that are good for each of those and how that implements into the rules of the scenario. And what I want to start digging for is, could a format like this, where you get to know the scenario beforehand, allow, maybe the word is not allow, pilots that end up getting gatekeeped by other scenarios that could end up being used in this format? I'm curious to see what pilots might show up, and just kind of digging through our collective knowledge. And those of you who are watching live, maybe we can find some pilots, some underused pilots that might be useful in a format like this. It still uses scenarios, but you can sub in people as needed. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to get started with Scramble the Transmission. So if you're not familiar or you don't remember Scramble the Transmissions, this is the scenario where you have 3 scenario tokens on the board, 1 in the center, you place 1, your opponent places 1, and people sometimes lovingly call it the light switch or hitting the buttons scenario. You use an action to go ahead and scramble, and if you have a higher initiative ship come afterwards, they can go ahead and claim it, and at the end of the turn, starting in round 2, you claim a point. It's that simple. So some of the things that I've seen that are really good in this scenario is that when people have passive modifiers that they can spend on their attacks, and they can use that perform action step action to actually do the scenario action, they end up getting a big advantage in that scenario. So for instance, you got things like force users that have the force available for them to modify their attacks and to defend with. A lot of times those, especially if they're higher initiative, they love Scramble the Transmission, because a lot of times they're faster, a little bit more maneuverable. They'll go ahead and click the button as needed. Also, one thing that I witnessed, remembering specifically a game that Marcel played, is when you have a swarm worth of ships, you have enough ships, you have ships that can afford the action. right? Even though they might be in the line of fire, you have so many ships where you might be willing to risk actually going ahead and clicking the button to get it done there. As for what are tools that are good, I mean, we talked about having many ships, passive modifiers, and you know, when it comes to pilots that could rise out of this format, this is where I question, like, are we gonna see a big spike in force users being used during scramble the transmission, or would it be, you know, it's impossible to know, but I'm trying to think through what are pilots that maybe we don't normally see that would be good in here. Who's a passive, but here's I guess my thing for scramble, right? Who has passive modifiers and doesn't see play a lot, that doesn't really work in the other scenarios? And I'm not sure of anybody off the top of my head.
I'm trying to think of maybe not passive modifiers, but someone with a passive extra action. I'm looking at Darth Vader, Poe, Night Beast. They all get that extra action they can use for scrambling.
Right. See, but now those are all pieces that and this is what I was trying to add in that the end of that sentence is, those are all pieces that we would see already. Right?
Not Night Beast. Not since his 3-point increase.
Oh, you're right.
Yeah,
You're right.
You could say Republic Jedi that aren't Obi and Anakin.
Fair.
Like, especially the 4-point ones. The Aether Sprites at 4, your Ahsoka, your Mace, your Lumi, they're cheap, but you got a lot of them.
Yeah,
You're really
Ahsoka.
good at get my reposition with my Force and hit the button.
Click. All right. Yeah. So definitely gonna see Force users there. I like Dark Curse, Night Beast. But yeah, Scramble the Transmission, I think, is probably the most straightforward one out of these three when it comes to what's good. If you have extra actions, you're probably going to end up seeing it. Could we end up seeing more coordinators in this? Just like you say, all right, so my normal ship that I want to bring doesn't have extra actions, but if I have my normal ship, quote unquote, do the scenario action, and I have a AP5 or some other coordinating ship, a Psy Shuttle out there to be, hey, click, you get your action now so that you can make sure you do stuff. Yeah.
Any scenario that takes an action from your ship to do, having a coordinator is going to be additional value and support to make sure that ship still has mods of some type.
Oh, Marcel Manzano, he's excited about the autopilot drone. Maybe we haven't seen enough escape craft. Escape craft, you don't see them out there in Scum.
Well, you got Gamut first.
Yeah, you got Gamut.
Hawks can cost 3. Yeah. So, sorry.
Wrecked.
He should be 1.
The drone?
Yeah, he should be 1.
How much is the National Pup?
1.
It is 1?
Yeah.
It feels like an oversight. I don't know. Because, I mean, what it can coordinate, and it blows up after 3 turns.
And it has to blow up. But yeah, it doesn't have all the same tricks it used to. So yeah, it just basically blows up.
All right. Couple of other things we have. Let's see. Chase in the chat says, "I've enjoyed Yeager with Squad Leader as a cheap I-5 coordinator. That is a good one for the Republic. Absolutely." All right, so let's keep it going here. We can roll back to Scramble as needed, but Will, what is your scenario?
All right, this is Assault at the Satellite Array. This is one of these scenarios with 5 objectives, but no scenario action. At the end phase, you just need to have a ship at range 0 to 1 of your objective, and you will score a point. Now, you will have to contest that objective with your opponent. So if you tie, that's a wash. But if you, say, have 2 ships versus their 1, that objective is going to be going to you. In addition to that, medium and large bases do count as 2. So in the same situation, 1 medium base versus 1 small base from your opponent, that's going to be your objective. And that's where you're, the first thing, the obvious advantage for bringing a assault-based list is going to be those medium and large bases. That's a big difference, twofold, to count for those assaults. My other ones I listed out was speed, which most of those larger bases can fuel faster and move around the board. The other thing I'm looking at is just ship count. I mean, if you bring all 8 small bases, you can converge on those objectives with just sheer numbers. In fact, maybe even preventing your opponent from even getting into range 1 because you have so many ships near it. Then the other one's turrets. You might have to fly to an objective that is, say, outside the fight. But if you have a turret, you could actually help out and still contribute even while going to those kind of outskirts of the battlefield. Some disadvantages, some list types you're not going to want to fly in assault are lists that want to stay together. We're talking like an Iden full swarm where everyone's trying to be next to Iden and Hall Runner. I'm trying to think of what's some other range 1 only abilities.
Range 1? Oh, you mean your own ship's range 1?
Yeah, Sarasu is another one, defensive rerolls for ships at range 1.
Yeah, network calculations of any
network
type.
calculations,
Even though
yes.
a lot of times you can meet that out a little bit.
Sure. Then things like swarm tactics. If you got some chaining of swarm tactics, might all want to be at range 1 of each other, and that's going to prevent you from doing what you need to do, which is spread out to get to those multiple objectives. Now, you don't need to send a single one of your 5 ships to each objective, because most of the time there's going to be 1 or 2 by your opponent's edge that they're going to be able to get to more easily. So you want to focus on the 2 on your side, and especially the 1 in the middle. And that's really the difficult part, is trying to converge your fire onto a single target, preferably one who's about to score that objective, right? So if you got my 2 ships and Dion's 2 ships fighting out in the middle, I need to get one of those ships off the board, and might require help from other ships who may not be contesting that objective. Now, it's easier said than done. Unless you got like unless every ship in your squad's a turret or something, that's going to be the challenge for you. What some easier things you could do is if you have, say, a 5th or 6th ship that's more of just a filler, maybe a 2-point tie or a vulture or something, you can send them off to an objective, especially the ones that were on your board edge. You can put one right next to a rock, or put an obstacle right next to one, and then maybe jump a vulture onto it for the rest of the game. You just sit there with the struts open. Yeah, open. Getting those points, same thing. You got a little black squadron tie, just hard 1 barrel rolling around an objective. They will, as a 2-point ship and maybe even a 3-point ship, you might score more points getting that objective than you would having that ship help you in combat. So that's an easier way.
That's a good point. Just be there.
The vultures got to survive the 2nd and 3rd round. That's all they got to do to make up their points on an assault. So it's really low bar for these quote unquote filler ships, your BB-8s, your TIE fighters, your Jurek Jaegers, things like that. Then of course, now this is some more advanced setup you'll have to do, is that because the large bases and medium bases can not only get you double ship count, if you will, but a large base is easier to put them together. The objectives have to be range 2 from each other, but a large base can be put in between them and actually get 2 objectives. In fact, you can get 3 if you set it up right. If you set up a little triangle, perhaps, including the middle one. Though, be careful, because if your opponent notices you building this triangle for your decimator or falcon or whatever, they're more inclined to drop an obstacle right inside of that small triangle to prevent you from scoring those objectives. So like I said, a little bit more advanced, but definitely something I've seen. When that large base comes in and takes 3 of them and steals them away from your single ships as well, it can really get a lot of points in there. And that might be the other thing I want to stress about this scenario. There's 5 points available every round on the board, which means that every what do I want to say? That there's many times where destroying a ship is not as valuable as taking, say, 2 or 3 objectives over time.
I think one of the craziest things I've seen is in a turn, a player managed to destroy an enemy ship, like a large base ship, and then end up controlling all 5 satellites in one turn, and just completely flipping a game because the target selection was correct, and it ends up like those satellites, you can run away with it pretty quickly if you got control with it.
Right, and that I mentioned it before, but that speed for your ships is an advantage, not to get to the objective, but sometimes you might want to leave combat and get to the objective more specifically. This is a scenario that doesn't award half points, so a lot of the times you'll find yourself a 1 or 2 health ship with low initiative. They are just going to give up those points in combat. So you just 5-forward them out to the outskirts and try to find a objective out there. This gives to me kind of a conflicted view, because like, well, do I want to go like 2 medium bases and maybe like 1 or 2 other small base ships, or do I want to go like 7 or 8 ships for this one? Fortunately, because it doesn't require that action, I think a lot of ships can excel in assault where they normally would have a downfall. We're talking aces specifically. Your interceptors, your Adas, can actually staying alive and running on the outskirts is still going to be contributing to the combat.
Love it. Let's see.
You said a ton of words. I left for a part of it. Did you talk about the droids parking on stuff already?
Oh yeah. I'm trying to think of, is there anything else? I'm thinking like ships with stop, like a Bosk with contraband stops.
Yeah,
Sky shuttles.
I don't know if you mentioned or not. One of the archetypes that used to be really good, that kind of fell off. It used to be really good maybe January, February, March, and then it's just started falling off more and more, are the Alpha Strikes, specifically like Rebel Alpha Strikes.
Okay.
They actually tend to do really well here because they don't have to sacrifice their actions, their target locks, their double mods in order to.
Yes.
So when I'm playing against something like Rebel, whatever, Corrin Plus or Wedge Plus or things like that, that rely on those initial actions to get their double modded Alpha Strike off, I usually hope that I don't get them for chance engagement or for this, because in scenarios where they have to take the action in order to capture or tow, then they're giving up their Alpha Strike capabilities at that point. So Alpha Strike tends to do better than other ones in
Yeah, I mean, especially in that scenario where you can misplay your setup. Like, you don't realize that it's Wedge and Luke coming down at the high initiative, and you spread out your 5 ships very wide. They can just come in and take one ship out, take out the next ship, and all of a sudden you'll find yourself with a couple scenario points, but lacking in overall ship count.
All right. So that, my friends, was Assault at the Satellite Array. Now, going back here, and I want to do a quick comparison. if you were trying to play, let's say I know there's players who are very they are rebel players. I'm a rebel player, or I'm a resistance player. Going between scramble to assault, I heard go for larger ships, those medium and large base ships, and if you can swarm them. It's one of those two things, right? So just maybe if you're playing in Sector Series and you like to play a single faction, that's how maybe you could start tweaking your list in order to, obviously large base ships and a swarm don't quite go together at the same time, totally, for every faction, but you can kind of swing your list in one of those two directions. All right, Ryan, we're gonna go salvage.
Got to get them crates. So, quick summary: you got 5 crates. Pick them up. Limits ship repositions. We'll get into details in a moment. Gain 1 point per crate held by friendly ship at end phase. When a crate carrier suffers a crit damage or would be destroyed, drops the crate placed at the by the opponent. So, if you're holding one, they shoot you, get a crit, or your ship dies. Your opponent puts that crate down at range 1 of the ship that took a crit or destroyed. Now, what limits a lot of people's decision making, whether they pick up crates or not, is the fact that carrying a crate does limit the ship's repositioning capabilities. No boost actions, no barrel roll actions, no slam actions, no cloak actions, and no gaining cloak tokens. Because there are ways to gain cloak tokens outside of taking a cloak action, through means by mainly Amel and Holdo crew. We've seen that little shenanigans of resistance before. And also Dooku pilot that isn't Coruscant, where he could recloak in the shooting phase, the 7-point Dooku with his old ability, and a few other niche spots here and there. So when you're looking at that scenario, and you have to decide what tools are good to have for this. Well, generating crits, that's an obvious one, right? You want to be able to knock crates off ships. Crits are already really damaging as it is to any ship that has to take it. Sometimes it could be the difference between life or death on a 3 health ship. Sometimes it could be a hull breach on a 9 hull ship and now has to deal with crits forever for the rest of the round and maybe the next round. But knocking off crates off a pot shot, because you can modify and generate your own crits, whether it's from stuff like marksmanship or ship abilities like advanced targeting computer from the X1 chassis, malice, a force usable card that can you can spend your force to instead change an eyeball to a crit. Proton torpedoes, where you will get a crit as long as you get hit in there, advanced or regular. So I think there's many, many more that I probably haven't spoken to. But those are the top off my head of what are crit generating abilities and upgrades in the game right now that people could be like, all right, this is what I could bring. These are the options that I have. But also, how can I get better, or how can I provide stuff that's better at actually carrying the crates instead of maybe focusing on taking them off? So ships that have repositioning moves, but are not actions, such as ailerons, your strikers, your reapers, your N1 Anakin starfighters with that no action barrel roll. I believe that's actually it. There's not a lot of them in the game. But allowing you to still move extra without having it be one of those actions is valuable in squiggling your way around, carrying a crate, and running away. But also, if you could prioritize yourself as having a good selection of valuable advanced maneuvers. Your K-turns, your sloops, your talons, your stops, your side slips, etc. Anything that has a weird way to put your ship in a spot to get a arc back in the shot, or in a spot where your opponent can't really stop you for, or maybe you have, like, I have 3 sloops, or I have 2 sloops in 4Ks and 5Ks, like the Jedi Aether Sprite, even though it really likes its repositions, It's got some pretty good selection of advanced maneuvers to get itself where it wants to shoot still while carrying it great. As we talked about with Scramble, ships that still get mods when they want to take that scenario action to pick up the crate, it's good to still have mods or also damage mitigation. So things like Iden TIE Fighter or even Iden Interceptor, you feel a little more safe around Iden to pick up a crate and not have a mod, even if you don't have Force or don't have Coordinate. Speaking of which, coordinators, just like Scramble, it's good to have those. Still have a mod if you did the scenario action. Also, just simply cheap ships. Because when you pick up a crate and you are now carrying it, you don't have to stay somewhere. You can go wherever you want on the board to carry that crate as long as possible. So you can have a 2-point or 3-point ship that all they need to do to make up their value back if they end up dying is go at or over that amount. There's plenty of games where I've seen people who take just a 2-point Black Squadron Ace TIE Fighter and just, I'm going to pick up this crate, and I'm just going to go the other way. I'm not even going to try to engage. I'm just going to lump around the entire time, point, tick, point, tick, point, tick, point, tick, and just keep upping the clock for against their opponent and force them to consider, do I reach out and try and stop this ship from carrying this crate, putting myself out of position against ships that are actually trying to fight me? It's a difficult decision sometimes. So general pilots that work out well rebel-wise, both Lukes, because you got Proton Torps. Ezra TIE Fighter is a great use case for, I have a passive mod and I'm cheap, so actually has a double whammy there. Saw Crew VCXs, if you want crits, you get all of them, kind of, depending on how many eyeball results you roll. Fen Sheathipede as a coordinator. Your I6 coordinator can give you a lot more information after you've already taken a scenario action to pick up a crate. Out of those, I think the Ezra TIE is probably the main winner out of that. I mean, we have seen Ezra TIE before, but I think if you're bringing a Rebel list and you're planning for salvage, I think Ezra TIE is an amazing value at 3 cost. You can still take a crew like K2SO and still be giving someone else an extra mod as well with that calculate. You also have Jam to be an annoyance, but also, or just a TIE Fighter flying around carrying crate with Force and probably Evade. For Empire, they got a slew of things that feel really good. Empire might be the best salvage faction. You get all the Vaders, because even Defender Vader that likes HLC, he's also just got Malice with Juke. Very scary for crits. You have both X1 Vaders. You have Feroff and Vizier, great for carrying crates. Vizier with Palpatine just run around and be like, I'm a Palp carrier that's still scoring points. Very good. And then I talked about before Iden. Iden's great. And any TIE fighter is protected by Iden. And the 2-point ties. All of these are already really well prevalent. There's not really a ship that stands out to me as like here's this potentially unused often ship that I could see being swapped to. Everything else is too comfortable and plays well enough in other scenarios anyway. I could maybe see someone try out a rack for that extra crit generation for free. Pretty tough to bring down. You need a lot of focus fire. You can draw a lot of aggro away from other stuff that can pick up crates instead. For Scum, you got Bosk with Greedo Gunner. It does sometimes not feel as great to not split that crit, but just having that 180 arc of just, I'm gonna throw a crit at you. Stop me. Maybe two. I probably got Zam Crew too.
I mean, maybe because of the format, could you maybe see other VCXs maybe being brought? Is it worth it?
I think it's mainly Callus. Callus is the number 1 to me. He's 7 points within the realm of the cheaper VCX.
Okay.
I mean, cheaper 7 still might be a little too high right now, but Callus and Chopper, and I think Callus is probably the better one at this point. 1 higher initiative at I4. There's still plenty of stuff at I4 and up that can concern Callus getting maybe not initiative killed in 1 round, but you want a VCX to live more than 2
for sure.
Hopefully. For Scum as well, you got Sarasu, similar to Iden, another cheap 3 agility ships that can be around Sarasu. A lot of people think you need to like spread out with crates. You don't have to, like for assault, when Will was talking about maybe stuff that likes to stick together, can't really play that as well. What we've seen in the past with stuff like tie swarms when people played salvage, you could just set up the objectives in a way where that main group sweeps across all of those crates along the way, picking up the first one on its first pass, and it's already in the back line of the ships that aren't likely getting shot at or aren't good shots, and then picking up a front one around this in either the same turn or the turn after, because not many things are going to want to go in front of that and pick up something in front of an entire mass group of ships and not have mods and get shot. Gamut and Kanan, damage mitigation for Kanan. Gamut as coordinator, plus here, save some focus, evade, calc, reinforce, whatever tokens while you go pick up a crate. I think there might be some value 3 agi ships in there that are cheap, like your 3 cost, 3 agility, whether it's the Seeks or the mining ties. When you can fly through rocks, if you take some rocks, fly through rocks, that's a good kind of getaway option. Your Havs, the new Lapin, those are both potential mining guild ties that could see more use than normal. Resistance BB8's 2 points. Can easily get that back by just carrying a box around. Proton Torp Poes, Commander Poe or Trigger Poe. Ray, I have a big gun. All right. I'm going to very easily threaten something that wants to try and pick up a crate. Oh, you want to try and pick up that crate? Are you sure you want to use your action to pick up that crate? Because I'm Ray, and I have a big gun. Rhodes with C-3PO. It's not a common 3-point ship we see in Resistance anymore, but we've seen her value in the past with that coordinate. Nodin in the Resistance transport with Hondo has a lot of crazy shenanigans with the coordinate there. Double coordinates, double jams. Tally has proton torps, so you could see, like, I could potentially see like a Rose or Nodin Tally with proton torps getting nice double modded proton torp shot. Ray or Poe around with BB-8. Like, you mix some stuff together, figure it out. But yeah, I think the normally we don't see a lot of coordinators in Resistance, but I think they could show up for this. Kylo with Malice or any version of Pro Torps. Phasma, she has really good crit mitigation. She's a really good box carrier. If you have someone next to her that she can just pass the crit off to. Zai shuttles with Tarek's crew. Breach with proton torpedoes. High initiative FO bomber that we don't see often. We're used to seeing the cheaper ones with chaffed bombs that got nerfed a little bit. I think the Phasma is going to be a common take in first order for salvage for sure. 4 points, really good box carrier. Doesn't really care about reposition. And just stick someone next to her like quick draw. You sure you want to shoot Phasma?
This is my box. You ain't getting it.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No. And if you think you're going to get it, quick draw is going to shoot you extra. Republic, normally not a great salvage option. But Coruscant Anakin has Malice. Not a lot of things. I think that's the only ship that has Malice in the faction or can take it. I guess regular Ada Anakin. Lats, plenty of passive help through attacking, potentially defensive sharing or coordinate crew, etc. I talked about N1 Anakin. It's hard to see an Anakin other than like 7B or probably the Ada Anakin be taken instead of N1, but N1 Anakin can do the free barrel roll and still take a proton torpedo, so it's kind of a double whammy, which is nice. Why not an I6 double modded torpedo from Anakin Y-Wing? Maybe. And then your Coruscant Click and Stub with shield upgrade. Stub's really cheap, can basically be 3 agility with 5 health. Click is 3 agility with 5 health. From Coruscant and can help mitigate some damage at range 1. So there's a few options, but your centerpieces are there to really threaten on the damage side of things. So you could stick with like a 7B Anakin and still take like Click and some other small cheap ships around him to, you guys carry the boxes. I'm going to go do I'm going to go bring the pain. Separatist, Grievous, and any Bubble Lab that has Impervium plating. I know Grievous doesn't normally want to take a box, but late game, When he wants to end it, grab box, close it out, have the clock tick faster. Impervium's going to make it more difficult to put those crits through. Well, actually, I just have to check the rules on that. Will, do you know offhand? He still suffers the crit, right? Even if the card is discarded for crate purposes?
You're talking impervium plating?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, if you see the back of a card, you were dealt that card.
Okay.
So yes, you have to be dealt the crit to throw it away.
All right, never mind. Ignore me. Still bring Grievous anyway. He brings the pain too. You sure you want to take that box with Grievous next to you? No. 2-point vultures, cheap. Get your points back easy. Coruscant Dooku brings a lot of crit capability, whether it's him calling crits, whether it's malice. Either one's scary. Bombardment Hyena, cheap, but also free prox mines. Could be free crits. And Dirge with a proton cannon. We saw Paul Heaver use proton cannon, engine upgrade, contraband, Dirge. And if you're in that bullseye, you don't get to use any green tokens defensively, and you get a free eyeball to crit conversion with the proton cannon ability itself. So you'll see a lot of crit stuff. You'll probably see a lot of coordinate or helping stuff. Passive mods will always show up. But you might see some rare like crit mitigation things, like I talked about Phasma, or more coordinate things from factions we hadn't seen, like in Resistance.
What about Selfless and Rebels?
That's true. Selfless and Rebels. Pass those crits around to someone else who isn't carrying a box.
Muted. Great. Let me say that one more time. So, I say thank you for deep diving that, because I have found that, you know, because there's sometimes a lot of resistance to playing salvage, that there hasn't been as much information and experimentation within that scenario. And this is a really great deep dive for every faction. You got options there, so go ahead and start digging and seeing what you can do. And it only benefits you in Sector Series, because you're gonna know beforehand. So if you think about it, you have some options.
Yeah, all right. And then I think Let the Wookiee Win actually brought up another one. Zeparillios. He cancels crits before hits is a great crit carry. But also just remember, sometimes you could just not opt into helping carry and crate at all, and just be the person that brings the big guns and crits and say, I don't care about picking them up myself. I'm just gonna stop you from doing it. And I'm going to destroy you. And then when I'm close to the end game, when I'm like, all right, now I'll pick up a crate when everything's like mostly dead. That's a pretty viable strategy too.
Awesome. Looking forward to seeing what people bring there for salvage. And then last but not least, we have chance engagement. What's chance engagement, Marcel?
Kill stuff. So you put one objective, one mission token, in the center of the board, and then each round, starting round 2, there's going to be 2 points given. It's either going to be 1 point each if both ships have, both opponents have a ship within range 2 of the center of the board, and if they don't, if only one of them does, then those 2 points will go to that to the one who does. But essentially, it's a dogfight with the assumption that there's going to be an incentive to just not have your entire list dally around the sides, while so you don't lose 2 points a turn. This is a funny one. It's a funny one because it's the old dogfighting, right? It's what we're all used to back in 1.0, and even back to like the 2.0 before going to 2.5. And it's what It's what we've always played. The people that have been playing around longer, but for the last year, it's only 25% of your practice time, and I would dare to say that it's probably closer to like 5 to 10% of your practice time, because I've been playing around a lot in just like pickup friendly games throughout the year, and the ones that get vetoed are usually chance engagement. Is like, when chance engagement comes up, they're like, let's play something else. Or you purposely practice the ones that you feel you're weakest at, whether it's salvage or whatever. So you tend to ignore just the regular old school dogfight, and you tend to play that. And actually, before I even get deeper into that, like, I'm not gonna ask you, because you barely play. We'll get some games in, buddy. Don't worry. But William and Ryan, like, would you say that chance engagement is what you play the least?
I don't selectively play anything at this point. I just use like randomizer
Random?
ways, whether it's on TTS, shuffle the randomizer deck of scenario cards, or roll a d4 in person and just, this round at the store we're going to play this round at the store we're going to play that. So I tend to not focus on an objective unless an opponent myself agree upon just practicing one specifically in a certain matchup to see how it would play out.
Yeah, for me, back when scenarios were launched earlier this year, I never played Chance because it was something I knew very well leading up to that. But now, no, I'm with Ryan. It's just kind of like whatever, unless it's like this week's sector series is chance engagement, so I want to practice some chance engagements, something like that.
Okay. Now the next question before I get into this is includes Dion. So, in theory crafting, when you're thinking of lists and you're thinking like, well, how's this going to perform in this scenario? How's this going to perform in that scenario? How often do you take chance engagement into the consideration for how you're building a list? Because I know that I don't at all. I'm always thinking like, how is it going to pick up crates? How is it going to fill the board for assault? Or how is it going to perform in the other one?
I mean, unless like my list already has a bunch of odd numbered ships, odd like squad value. We're talking 3, 5, right? 7, I guess. 9. Those are the only options. It sounds like to affect the half point threshold, but it's never something that I am building my list around. I just noticed it was like, oh hey, I have this advantage in chance. Is that the same for you, Ryan?
Yeah.
For myself, one of the things that I guess here's a question, like, is it possible to build a list that is good, or I'll say serviceable, at scenarios and bad at chance engagement? Like, is that possible?
I don't think you could go pure objective play anymore. I think you need some capability to destroy a ship or two. But I think I see your line of thinking. That you might build just an objective-only squad. It's like, we're a bunch of A-wings, and we could pick up objectives all day. But can we kill something?
And that's where I was headed, in that most people are building their list, or at least most people that I know, and including myself, are building your list of thinking about, okay, how is it going to perform on these 3 different scenarios? And when it comes to chance engagement, hey, you know what? I'm just going to wing it because it does well in these 3 scenarios. I know how to play a dogfight, so it'll dogfight. So you don't purposely, or a lot of the time, you don't purposely think of that scenario while you're list building. So that's something that that it's still 25% of the possibility of a game. And it could even be the final. You might have a final in chance engagement. And if you didn't take that into consideration, you might be setting yourself up at a disadvantage. Now, some of the things that are an advantage in the other three scenarios that would be a disadvantage in this one would be ships like decimators or like YT 1300s or even some of the big bulky, like Ray and things like that they just put out a ton of damage. It's very difficult in a 5 or 6 round, which is what the average is, game to kill them. I mean, you can get them down to 2, 3, 4 health, but you're not going to kill them. And they're going to stick around long enough. They're going to kill things. They're going to collect their mission points, or they're going to prevent other ships from collecting their mission points. And they're not going to give anything up in return. Here, you have half points. And those decimators, if you take rack, which I think rack is 8 points, you're going to be giving up 4 points, guaranteed every round. Every chance engagement round, you're going to give up 4 points. Same thing goes for Boba. It's super hard to kill Boba. It's not impossible to get Boba to half, so you're going to be giving up half points with Boba. So a lot of these ships that are really good at some of the other objectives, or because they stick around forever and you're very unlikely to kill them, you're going to hurt them but not kill them. It makes sense to shoot at them in chance engagement because you can get those half points, and those half points come in bunches. It's usually either 3 or 4 points, which is the same as a small two. A TIE fighter will cost you 2 points, or even Iden will cost you 3 points to get all the way dead, where you can get those 3 points a lot easier just by putting in 7-8 damage on a decimator, which again you can get in. So I think a lot of people just don't think about that. And another one another point that William brought up is the math behind the shield upgrade. Shield upgrade most times is really good, but then you get ships that are odd number or even number in health. And when you're an odd number health ship, let's say a TIE fighter, when you're at a TIE fighter and you add a shield upgrade, it still only takes 2 points to get you to half, or two damage to get you to half. But if you're putting it on a TIE foe, which is 4 health, now you got to get 3 points to get that half point. And that half point is very minimal. So that shield upgrade makes a lot more sense in those even numbered ships, especially with the higher agility. And then if you're in an odd numbered, let's use A-Wings, for example. If you're an A-Wing that happens to have an odd number, like none of them. Actually,
yeah, I think they're all even.
Yeah, they're all even. But if you're in a 2 agility or 3 agility ship that has an odd number, you're probably better off putting elusive and then some other defensive tech, or having a defensive ship, or putting offense so you can put out more damage, than getting that extra shield, because that extra shield it's not taking you as much as the even numbered health ships. I think Defender Vader, his stock goes through the roof in chance engagement, because now you got a force on offense, evade, focus, 7 health, which requires 4 points of damage in order to even get half points. So that's a ship that carries its 9 points and holds on to its 9 points, and can do enough damage to get rid of the other ships. I think Defender Vader probably does the best in chance engagement. I don't know if you guys feel the same way or not, but it shines most in chance engagement because it's high initiative. It can be really tanky. It has that natural odd number health, which benefits the half point portion. Let's see what else. Other than that, I mean, I had most of the stuff that I had written down is stuff that, to Dion's point or to William's point, it makes sense in all the other scenarios. Like if you have an Alpha Strike that does well with assault at the satellite array, it's going to do well here. TIE Swarms, Defender Vader, probably high initiative basis is something that has a potential of doing well here better than other ones. Things like Sienna Ree. Like Sienna Ree can probably make her points value here because she can play the ace flying around, where in other scenarios she's got to contribute to the mission objectives, and in two of those she's going to have to give up one of her actions and doesn't get multiple actions.
You can't do that. She goes pop pop.
Yeah, she'll just die. Yeah, so I mean, I can go through different lists that do well, but those are honestly just lists that do well dogfighting. So I'm not really sure what to kind of say. Just go for value that retains that dogfights well, that basically jousts well, or that aces around and moves around well. But I personally don't build for chance engagement.
Well, so
I take
here
chance engagement.
I'm gonna give you the question here though. You're playing in Sector Series. Are you just? Here's my question to you: is your plan to play the same list for all 5 weeks?
No.
So then, when chance engagement week comes up, how are you gonna what are you gonna do? How are you gonna how are you gonna tweak your list?
Yeah. So how am I going to do? I'm probably going to go. Well, the first thing I'm not going to do is I'm not going to take any large base ships, any 1 agility ships. I'm probably not going to take anything that's 1 agility.
Okay,
I'm gonna
good
start
point.
with 2 agility and up. So that's the first one, because I want to conserve the half points as much as possible. I'll probably go with 2 and 3 agility things. So for an example, if I'm flying resistance, normally I would fly YT, PO, 1300, a couple A-wings, a couple pods, or something like that. I would probably switch that up and use those 7 points to fly something a little bit different. Maybe the double reposition T70 PO, the overdrive PO, overdrive. I would probably go with something like that for that particular scenario, because it's not impossible to, even with YT 1300 PO's ability to like barrel roll boost and all that, it's not impossible to pin it down, and it doesn't take too much to put 6 damage on it in order to get it to half. So things like that, I would probably avoid the large base 1 agility things. Even another example would be in Republic. In Republic, whether I'm playing a tournament or whether I'm playing one of the other 3 objectives, I'm probably going to lean heavily into the Arc 170s, the 4-point Arc 170s. And probably fly 3 Arc 170s, the 3 Siege of Coruscant Arc 170s, and then fill in the other 7 points some way. But if it's a chance engagement, I would be more likely to bring an extra ETA, an extra ETA, to kind of just fly around the edges, poke around, do some damage, bring some, bring things like the click and things that will make it very difficult for my opponent to get any points. Still be able to play around the center of the board, but kind of knife fight a little bit. With the first order, instead of going with things like TIE SFs, probably get that extra agility and go with the TIE foes and the TIE silencers. So things like that. Just trying to protect the half points as much as possible, I think, is probably where I would make the biggest choice differences. But if I'm playing chance engagement in the Sector Series, I'm almost guaranteed to fly Defender Vader and Iden Versio.
Okay. Stay alive and stay alive harder.
Yeah. And then fill in the rest. So it'll be Iden, probably Countdown, because I love Countdown. But figure it out. It'll be Iden, Defender Vader, figure out the rest from there. Because they're going to... Vader's going to put in some hurt, and it's going to be really hard to get any points off those ships.
It seems good. I just kind of built on a baseline is Defender Vader, Moff Gideon, and 4 2-point TIE fighters. 6-ship list. Each ship, you're only getting 1 point for getting half. That feels terrible.
Oh yeah. That's
And just getting 2 points for a ship feels terrible. You already talked about Defender Vader. Moff Gideon makes those ties actually hit. I mean, I know how much you like Moff Gideon.
I think another one that we need to just consider is BB-8 with Han Solo, the automated targeting priority plus Han Solo crew BB-8. That BB-8 can stay alive forever. And then I was telling, before we got on, I was telling William about people flying that ship with can't think of it. You get to bring it in.
It's the insta resistance droid is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah. Like you bring in BB-8 in the third round, and I mean BB-8's just he's gonna stick around forever, and it's just gonna be really annoying because at that point you can put him behind the rest of the formation, so you can get him into the place where he's going to be able to get multiple evades. It's a pretty good ship, but any 2-point ship I think is a steal when it comes to chance engagement, and any 3 agility ship is going to be good. Alpha Strike is also good because you can just...
You're dead.
Yeah.
Step 1, you're dead. All right. Yeah, I am really excited to see how players make adjustments for the Sector series, because I know one of the other things that that Brian is going to be doing for us. Brian is the creator of Roll Better. Is players will have to enter their list each week, and we will have documentation for what lists were made each week. And when we get to those top 4 cuts after 5 weeks, we'll be able to see, all right, players near the top, what were they doing with their list? Did they have like one kind of archetype and they were slowly making maybe just like upgrade adjustments, or did somebody like cycle completely different lists? I'm just really excited to see what would happen. Now, Will, if you were playing in the series, what would be your approach? Are you taking completely different lists each week? Are you sticking with a single faction? Where would you be at?
I'm a list of the week kind of guy. Whatever faction I'm kind of feeling at that time. Like right now, I'm flying a lot of Imperials and Republic, but just to try out some new stuff. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to be definitely changing my list every week. I'm not sure if I'm going to like go hard on like trying to hard counter the objective rather than just maybe bring something that can handle a multitude of other people maybe trying a similar strategy. But no, if I can, I'll change my list every week.
Nice. What about you, Ryan?
Yeah, I don't mind changing the list. I do kind of agree that I'm not going to full go hard in on the like, oh yeah, I'm going to tech specifically for this objective, even if it would tank all the other objectives. That's not valuable to me as someone who wants to take the time that's spent playing in the Sector series to also apply my learnings to what I could do in an official AMG event, which is Worlds at Adepticon. So when I play games in that capacity, I want it to contribute to my learning, any development of a list, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd probably at least bring a list that isn't in the category of, kind of punts this objective as an example. Like I'm probably not taking Republic into salvage unless I really just wanted to stress test it. Right?
I mean, and that's what there's value in that, right? You're like, listen, most people, this is me. I'm taking something that is bad at this objective because I need to learn how bad.
Yeah, or know how I can find a way to overcome it. Like people, I might be paired up with someone who went full in on getting it, and I could be terrible at it. Like, that's the full end of the spectrum. I could try and stress test it if I wanted to, but I think I'm more likely going to just like if it was Scramble Week. I might still take Republic, but I'm not going to like super tech it specifically for Scramble. I'll just bring a good Republic list that I would bring to any Swiss event anyway.
Nice. All right, my friends. Well, for our fans and friends out there, Sector Series registration is open. So we're getting started in January. So get signed up ASAP. My plan is to cut off registration 1 week before we start. That way, if I need to do sector reorganization, we have time to do that. Then we draw up the first round. And we get rolling. So right now it looks like we're at about 90 players for the Sector Series. Should be a great time. And if you've never played on TTS before, because I know that there are some newer players who are joining, or players that have watched from afar from a while, this is a great low investment opportunity to get into Tabletop Simulator, because it doesn't cost you anything but taking time to play games. So should be a great time.
$20.
Well, it's Marcel. You're right. The thing does cost $20. I guess specifically what I meant is like you don't have to pay for the tournament. Okay, thank you. Tabletop Simulator, sometimes on sale for $10. All right. I guess I was specifically thinking about, there's 4 people I know that they have Tabletop Simulator. They've installed the mod at some point, and they're just like kind of scared to jump in.
You know, that actually that makes me think. I mean, actually, Steam should have their winter.
It should be coming up any day now. The winter sale.
Yeah, the winter sale for Christmas. Well, the winter sale already happened, but they'll name it something different. The winter sale was like around around Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Sure. Interesting.
But every other week they have a different name sale going on. Yeah.
Maybe we could coordinate some. What do I want to say? People who are in the giving spirit could maybe pick up one of those 4-packs, and we could find them people to give those codes to. Could be a great way to join in the holiday spirit.
That's right.
Right. I'm going to make a request.
Request access granted.
You.
Me.
Sign up and play.
It's been tough, man. I will tell you.
It's been tough. It's 2 hours a week.
You're correct.
Hour and a half a week.
He also has a new baby.
Alara has been she's fine, but she's just been a very needy baby. So compared to Arwen was easy. Oh my God, she would sleep like 5 hours at a time, eat, back to sleep, had time to do everything. Alara very much she needs to be held almost all day in order for her not to be screaming for the whole day.
I'm just saying it's doable. And TTS is the best place to be like, hey, you know what? I need to take 5 minutes. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to take a poop. You know.
I understand that, but at the same time, I don't want to inconvenience people. I will try.
Sign up and figure it out.
I can sign up. I can sign up and figure it out. Okay, I'll have to talk to Devin to see which sector time will be the best for me. And I will tell you, if I can do it, this means that you guys can do it. Right now, I might have to play with one hand, holding a baby. And no, but
you don't get like a Bjorn or something. You don't get one of those. You don't wrap her around like with a blanket or something.
She doesn't like it.
Oh, she likes the cradle.
She goes, I want to be able to hear your heartbeat, and I need to feel your hands. Today, right before the show, Devin was taking Arwen to dance, and all I did, so I was patting her with my right hand, and I switched to the left hand. This baby was just like, man, no, I want the other hand. I want the, and I just switched, and she was fine. Babies are funny. They're silly. You guys know. Anyway, my friends, I'm looking forward to see what Sector Series is, and I gotta love Marcel putting me on blast to play in my own tournament. Makes sense. But I can't win my own. I see if I join, I'm just gonna win it.
No. Like that's the total boss move. Create a tournament and win it.
Yeah. Be like, oh yeah, I mean you can join if you want, but like,
I mean that's like
I'm gonna crush streams
and all these other like isn't that like the whole thing? Like the whole like in the Knights and even in Game of Thrones, like they create these tournaments just so they can win it themselves.
True.
Do it.
This is true.
Do you put your name in the goblet? You put your name in the goblet?
I did. All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It has been awesome. We will not have a podcast next week because it's holiday weekend, coming off a holiday weekend. I know I personally will not be available. And we'll give you guys some time to spend time with family and friends, and hopefully maybe play some games, maybe play some TTS, maybe a card game with family and friends. I know my brother and sister are coming into town. We're planning on playing. My brother wants to play X-Wing, but my sister has zero interest in playing it. But she's interested in the Marvel Dice Thrones. So, gonna play that. Hey, Will, you want to come down and play some Dice Thrones? Play some Dice Thrones?
Sunday afternoon, maybe. Oh, let's see. Wait, no. Sunday is
Christmas.
Oh no. Well,
yeah, you can't do
maybe.
Sunday.
We'll figure something out.
All right, everybody. Thanks for watching, everybody. Be smart and be safe. Gold Squadron out.